Hi, my name's Angela. I'm a stringer videographer. But if you've been around my channel for a while, you know that I started as a citizen reporter. I was covering activism and stories about police brutality, not because I wanted to go viral, but because those stories were the stories that were important to me, and I felt like they needed to be told. And so that's where I started. But now, over time, I have transitioned into a freelance breaking news videographer. And now I do license and sell my footage to mainstream outlets. I work with stations. I cover all kinds of breaking news, not just activism anymore. But even today, money isn't my primary driver in what I do. For me, it's still about the story. It's always been about the story and getting things right. Putting accurate information out there and documenting what's happening in my community has always been a big deal to me. And that's why I want to talk about something important: the difference between a citizen reporter and a content creator, because it's not just about what you call yourself, it's about your motivation, your responsibility, and how your choices affect real people in real situations. And to show you why this matters, we're going to talk about a recent case: the disappearance of 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro, and how one TikTok creator kind of blurred those lines, and in a way that might have caused some real harm. So, citizen reporter versus content creator. So, let's start here. What even is a citizen reporter? A citizen reporter is just a regular person who decides to document and share events that matter. You don't have a press badge, you don't have a newsroom, you don't have editors backing you up, but you've got a phone or a camera and a sense of responsibility to show the public what's going on. That motivation is usually accountability, truth, or community awareness. Now let's compare that to a content creator. A content creator is motivated by the algorithm: views, likes, shares, monetization. Their responsibility isn't necessarily to the facts, but to keeping an audience engaged. And let me be clear, there's nothing wrong with any of that. Being a content creator is an exciting and fabulous thing to do, but it is entertainment and it has its place. When you start covering missing children and crime scenes or tragedies, that's when the stakes get too high to treat it just like another post. The line that separates the two is motivation. Citizen reporters are motivated by truth. Content creators are motivated by reach. And when you confuse the two, bad things are going to happen. The Emmanuel Haro case. Here's a real world example. A few weeks ago, 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro went missing, and his mother said that she had been attacked and he was kidnapped outside of a Big Five sporting goods. Right away, the story was suspicious, but it was still an active investigation. Authorities were actively searching, and the community was waiting for answers. And in the middle of this were content creators, specifically a content creator from TikTok with a large following that started covering the case. Now, this content creator started out in the TikTok space as a parody reporter, sort of doing a comedy style type of reporting. But over time, they began showing up to some real world incidences and accidents and crime scenes, and now they have the following and the tools, and they were in the space, meaning in geographically in the space where this case was being covered, to bring it to their platform. At first, what they were doing might have looked like actual reporting. They were filming the search scenes, they were talking on the camera, trying to talk about what was happening. But then came a critical mistake. They declared on a live that Emmanuel's body had been found. The problem? That wasn't true. So, from where this reporter, citizen reporter, content creator was standing in the live, there's no way that they would have been able to verify that that is visually what they could see. I'm not sure. I think I heard through the grapevine that the information might have come from somebody affiliated with a search party. But here's the problem is that's not a verification. That's not an authority giving a verification. You don't know exactly what they saw. You don't know exactly what has been found, and you have to wait until you get that information from the property authorities. Unfortunately, by posting this as a fact during a live, it was a misreport. And that was spreading some huge misinformation during an already painful and very sensitive investigation. And once that video, that live went out, and all of his followers saw it, and it got shared, and it was picked up by outlets, and some people reported it as fact, and it got very confusing. I understand it might have even made some international outlets, and outlets like TMZ picked it up. And not because it was accurate, but because this content creator's words had now become part of the story. And suddenly, instead of the focus being on the missing child, the focus was also on the fact that misinformation had been spread. And that's the danger of blurring the line. Motivation really matters. This brings us full circle back to motivation and why are you doing this or why do you want to do this? Some people report because they're passionate about the truth and accountability. Some people because they're in the right place at the right time. And some because they feel comfortable stepping up in front of a camera and into that role. And absolutely, some people do it for money. But here's the bottom line. If your motivation is clout and monetization, you're far more likely to cut corners. You're far more likely to speculate instead of verify, or rush to post something unconfirmed just to be the first one to say it. And that's not really reporting. That's gambling with people's lives and reputations, including your reputation. Citizen reporters tend to ask, how do I get this right? Content creators ask, how do I get this viral? If you're going to call yourself a reporter, even a citizen reporter, you have to take on responsibilities. First, verification. If you don't know, don't say it. If you can't confirm it, you can't present it as fact. Show what you can show, a search scene, a police presence, a fire, but don't jump to conclusions about what it all means. Second, who to verify with? Authorities. Authorities are the source. Law enforcement, public information officers, fire departments, EMS spokespersons, official press releases. If it hasn't been confirmed by them, then it hasn't been confirmed, period. Third, consent. If you're interviewing people at these scenes, a witness, a victim, a grieving family member, you have to get their permission. You cannot just run up and put a microphone in their face and start asking them questions. This is not the movies. Consent is everything. They have to consent that they understand that you are asking them questions on video. And basically, all that requires is asking them their first and last name and to spell their last name. That's considered video consent. Otherwise, when you're running up on people like that, that's not journalism. That's exploitation. Again, we're looking at a visual for clicks. Fourth, transparency. You got to list your sources. The fact that I don't know how this creator came up with the determination that they had found a body is part of the problem. Sources are really important. And it's real easy to say, according to such and such police department, according to such and such fire department. That shows your audience that you're not making it up and that you have a legitimate source. And one more point. Citizen reporters don't usually have the same legal protection as mainstream reporters or mainstream journalists. You can't just say, I have a protected source and expect the shield laws to protect you or to cover you. That's not how it works for a citizen reporter, which means you have to be even more careful about sticking to the facts. Consequences of getting it wrong. When you ignore these basic responsibilities, the consequences are going to be very real, especially if you're a content creator. You're going to lose credibility. Audiences will stop trusting you. News outlets won't buy your footage if that's what you had planned on doing with your footage. And if they can't trust your accuracy, you're going to become a pariah in that space. Families that are already grieving are hurt even more by misinformation. And you might even face legal consequences from getting it wrong. Civil suits for defamation or emotional distress if your reporting causes harm. And worst of all, you distract from the actual story. Instead of the focus being on Emmanuel, a missing baby, the focus temporarily, it did not completely shift. This is not that big of a deal, but it's a big deal to that content creator. It was a big hit for them. The focus shifts and the misinformation spread. And it did spread big time. Like I even had a hard time figuring out what the status of the situation was after that rumor went out for at least the first few hours. Why motivation matters. Again, this is why we keep coming back to the motivation. Big outlets, sure, absolutely. Their owners are motivated by profit. There's no question about that. But the people doing the reporting and their motivation comes from a different place. You don't get into the profession of news and being on scene and exposing yourself repeatedly to tragedies just for the money. It's because you can, you want to, and you're capable of doing it. And getting paid for it and allowing it to be your profession is a privilege. We do it because the truth matters, in all sincerity. Content creators, their motivation is absolutely the algorithm. Views, clicks, clout. And when you bring that mindset into a breaking news tragedy, you risk turning the news into entertainment, and that's not what it is. And that can cause real harm. In the Emmanuel Haro case, the content creator did not slow down to verify their information. They didn't wait for confirmation. They rushed to getting the information out in their live. They had a very large audience going at that time. I'm sure there was a lot of adrenaline pumping through them, especially since they have been very clear from the beginning that their motivation is to be a content creator. In that process, though, misinformation got spread. And it inserted that content creator into the story. And that's literally the opposite of journalism. So here's my takeaway. If you want to be a citizen reporter, you have to take on the responsibilities that come with it. Verify your facts, respect consent, be transparent, don't speculate. If your motivation is truth, your work is going to stand on your own, whether or not it makes you money. But if your motivation is clout and you're chasing clicks at the expense of accuracy, you're not reporting, you're content creating, and there's a big difference. The disappearance of Emmanuel Haro is tragic enough. The last thing anyone needed was the misinformation making it worse. So the next time you hit record, ask yourself, are you chasing clout or are you chasing truth? Because one of those paths builds credibility and the other destroys it. And remember this, verify before you amplify. All right, everybody, that's a wrap. Don't forget to like, hit that subscribe button, and follow along for more. And as always, I'll catch you on the beat.